more minutes of reading time. After that, we have a short round. Then you let me know which vocabulary is very new to you. Then we will go through. Those that are faster, you could do the practice mix programs of the previous section. Do with identifying flowers if you are faster. Keep yourself fully occupied. Let's begin. I have my highlighter with me. Could I just get a show of hands? Words that make no sense to you. And in a while, we're going to make sense of it together if you watch the video. Okay, any words? Yes. Okay, let's highlight. Polar nuclei. Who of them come on? Who polar nuclei? Okay, let's search for this later on. Any more? Yeah? Generating cell. What in the world is that? Okay, where is it? Here. Okay, generated cell. Okay, slightly further back. Here, at the time of pollination, pollen grain consists of tube cell and generated cell. Here, let's highlight tube cell also. Sounds very similar. Any more vocabulary? Yes, come in. Micropyle. Here, where is it? Blah, 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 pollen grain. Where is it? Okay, some paragraphs you can like, okay, thank you. Grow towards the micropyle. Okay. Let's figure out what that is, Noah. Any more? Chemical attractants. Okay. Where is it at? Same line. Okay. Oh, okay. In response to chemical attractants. And then Jeanette? Okay. Endosperm. Last paragraph, right? Okay, let's go last paragraph. There was endosperm. Okay. This one, you want to know? But let's find this. And there's also later you will develop into an endosperm. Okay, any more? Sorry? Angiosperm. Okay. Where is angiosperm? Oh, here. Thank you. Any more words? Yes. Where? Detroit. Where is it at? Number 8. Oh, the word triploid. Okay, thank you. Any more? So I think all the words you highlighted are really new vocabulary. You'll make sense of it together. Any more? Yeah, all good? Okay, so with all of the highlighted words in mind, let's start to find all of it as we watch this particular video coming up. This is a very old documentary, but it's in a CGI, therefore it's not very high-tech But actually it's very, very nice. It shows you all the various parts of the plant reproductive system and how this process of fertilization works in plants. Let's try to identify all the parts together. So we've learned about insect and weed pollination. Let's say pollination has occurred. The next stage, we're going to proceed with fertilization.
The transfer of pollen from center surface of the system is called pollination. This is handled by various means, such as wind, insects, or other animals. The pollen grain now absorbs water and begins to swell. A pollen tube soon emerges containing two nucleus and a gelatin cell. The gelatin cell divides to form two sperm cells. In order to reach the ovaries, the pollen tube must now carry the sperm down the full length of the canal. To help this, my first going through the stigma to reach the surface of the canal directly below. Pollen tubes are very fast rate of growth, often several micrometers per minute. This growth is photolized as tip. Vesicles containing more material accumulate in the tip, where they are required for wall growth. Behind it, the cytoplasm flows around the cells in regular streams. This is known as cytoplasmic stream. Two sperm cells and two nucleus can typically move forward for several rows. When the pollen tube reaches the base of the stomach, it grows into one of three ovaries. Inside the ovary, the tube maintains the two rows of ovaries.
You see all the ovules? That's what you're trying to search for last week in the plant.
The pollen tube grows into the micropart,
Micropart.
penetrates the megasporangium. It then grows into one of the cylindric cells, producing two sperm. One sperm fertilizes the egg cell, forming a diploid zygote cell. The second sperm fuses with the two copper nuclei, forming a primary endosperm cell. This double fertilization is characteristic of all angiosperms. The ovary contains hundreds of ovules, and each requires a pollen tube to be fertilized.
Look at the hundreds of pollen tubes going down.
Supports the growth of a large number of pollen tubes. These grow down the style, and into each of the three ovaries.
This flower has 3 ovaries, each one with many ovules.
When the pollen tubes enter an ovary, they each location to fertilize function. Inside the ovary, the ovaries are now about to undergo many changes.
Okay. I wonder, after watching this, did he answer many of the questions, any of the vocabulary we're looking for? Yeah. So you notice a lot of the vocabulary are subjects or locations. Micropyle is the location that the polar tube aims for. The generative nuclei, those are just two nucleus found inside the plant. Then the ovule. Okay, we go back to the textbook. Let's have a look at. Okay, so to recap, last week when we looked inside the ovary of the blue pea flower, we found that there were many ovules inside, yeah? Now we are learning, if we were to zoom into an ovule, this is what you will see. First and foremost, every ovule has an opening through which the polar tube can go in. That is the micropyle that was asked about earlier on. Micropyle is the opening. Very curious, therefore, if this is the opening of the ovule, is there something similar in humans? Is there an opening in humans where the sperm will go through? I mean, we cannot make direct comparisons all the time, but it's a good exercise to think about the human side of it, whether there's something similar. I wonder, is the cervix similar? Is the cervix, is there an opening? I wonder. Right, inside each ovule, I'd like you to take note of the fact that there is an egg. There's one egg inside that needs to be fertilized. Egg cell. Other than that, there's also one more cell inside that contains two nuclei. Each of the nuclei is called polar nuclei. Nucleus. So each one is a polar nucleus. Both of them together polar nuclei. So this is, what is it? Singular, plural. This is plural. Just one of them is a polar nucleus. So this cell over here is very special. It has two nucleus inside. Two nuclei. Your seniors used to learn how this cell ended up developing two nuclei, but we figured that out of the syllabus. Okay, so unfortunately, I need you to accept the fact that this is a very special cell that has two nuclei. So it's a pollen grain of sperm. Yeah? The pollen grain of sperm. What do you think? Sorry? G-A-M-E-T. Okay, so how do you pronounce that? Gamete. Okay? If we look at pollen grain, last week you all get to see pollen grain. Okay. So the pollen grains, sometimes pollen grain look very spiky. Okay, here are the pollen grain. When I was very little, I really thought pollen grains were sperms. So like when I throw pollen grain on my brother, right, I thought to myself I was throwing the sperms of the flower away. Then after that I grew up, actually not quite. So let's look at some of the vocabulary. First and foremost, it says a living pollen grain consists of only the tube cell and the generative cell. How do we make sense of this? Let's look at the video again. Perhaps you'll give us a clue. So here's the pollen grain.
The pollen grain now absorbs water and begins to swell. A pollen tube soon emerges containing the tube nucleus and a germinal cell.
Okay, we pause here. It says that the pollen tube, you can see there's a tube nucleus and a generative cell. And your textbook says that a pollen grain consists of a tube cell and a generative cell. So what does it mean? This is what it means. Every pollen grain consists of a tube cell. So this is the tube cell in black. The tube cell has its own nucleus, which is what they call the tube cell nucleus. And this is very, very odd, huh? But within this particular cell, it's actually another cell. It's a cell within a cell. Your seniors also used to learn how it's possible that you can have a cell developed within another cell. But we taken that out of the syllabus too. So within the tube cell, there is another cell with its own nucleus inside. This is the generative cell. So what is a pollen grain? A pollen grain is a cell that contains another cell inside and has often an outer coating that is spiky or has structures that allow you to stick onto the stigma. Which I found very fascinating. Every pollen grain is a cell that contains a cell inside. And I like that the scientists here didn't try to overcomplicate the naming process. They named this cell the tube cell and this cell the generative cell. Thank God it has meaning. Because the tube cell is responsible for directing the growth of the pollen tube. So here comes the pollen tube growing out. And the video showed that the nucleus will follow. Okay, this is the nucleus. It makes sense now why it's called a tube cell, because it's responsible for the growth of the pollen tube. The generative cell, as we saw, this is what happens to the generative cell. It generates the sperms. Yeah, it generates from the sperm. So from one cell, it will become two. It's very interesting. Actually, every pollen grain, once stimulated, unlike humans, okay, but humans also don't have pollen grains. But every pollen grain comes with two sperms. So here's sperm number one. So after it's split generated two, you have sperm one, you have a sperm cell, with another sperm cell. And this is important, and also why for plants we say that the process they go through is called double fertilization, because one sperm cell number one, or one of the sperm cells, will end up fertilizing the egg to form a zygote. So this plus the sperm, you get the zygote. This is what will become the plant baby. And when I say plant baby, maybe I need to qualify what that means. Plant baby means, have you ever seen before when a seed grows and then you see two small little leaves come out? The very first plant that comes out, that's a plant baby, actually is stored within the seed already. So there's a plant baby. It's stored within the seed. It's waiting to emerge. The second sperm fertilizes the two polar nuclei to form something called, in your textbook, a triploid endosperm tissue. Earlier on, Shafika asked, what does the word triploid mean? let's relate to what we've learned so far. We've learned about haploid, we've learned about diploid, it means 2 sets. So let's make an educated guess. What does triploid mean? Yeah, so if there's half a set, 2 sets, triploid means there are 3 sets of DNA now. Why? Because each polar nuclei over here has half the amount of DNA, half the amount of DNA, and this sperm also, all of them have half the amount of DNA, all of them are haploid. If you get 1 set, 2 sets, 3 sets, you end up getting a fertilized cell that ends up having 3 sets of DNA. 2 from the polar nuclei, 1 from the sperm. Yes?
Like a flower is pollinate and yes, both other people and itself.
Oh, okay. Are you saying that for a single flower, the pollen grains, right, could land on itself, and then the pollen tubes will grow down and fertilize itself, as well as the pollen grains can land on other flowers and fertilize others? Yes, it's possible. Yes. Oh, okay. Thank you. So, I like the way Pina has asked the question. She's asking, when you look at this entire cell, even though it has 2 nucleus, each one with half the number of DNA, half and half actually is diploid, right? Yeah, so this polar nuclei, Pina is right, it is diploid because it has half plus half is a full set. If you go and add a diploid plus a haploid, haploid sperm, you end up getting a triploid. But I'd like to elaborate a little bit about what endosperm tissue is. Endosperm tissue is, okay, the word tissue means it's made up of many cells. The function of this is to provide nutrients to this baby over here. So it provides nutrients. Because if you think about it very poor thing, when you were inside a mother, when we were inside mothers, we get our nutrients from our mother, right? Whatever our mother eats will be fed through the umbilical cord to us. That's how we grow. But when you throw a poor seed into the soil, where is it going to get the nutrients to break out of the cell and grow? Well, it gets it from the endosperm. Every seed comes with a baby plant that's just waiting to come out, and surrounding it is the endosperm. The endosperm provides lots and lots of nutrients so that that baby plant can last inside the cell, give it energy so that it can pop out of the seed as well. So that's the function of the endosperm. And that's primarily why plants need to have double fertilization. Because we don't just need a zygote, we also need something else that can supply the zygote nutrients. Because it is no longer connected to the mother. Right? You think about this, very different. The seed is by itself, it's on its own. Its baby is on its own, but it needs food. The food needs to come from somewhere. Especially because it's no longer attached to mommy plant. In other words, our moms were like seeds. Like I'm just trying to make comparisons here and there. It's not one for one, right? If you look at humans now, then our mom's tummy is like a seed. We are the baby. Then mom is like the endosperm giving nutrients to the baby. Now I cannot see it that way. I also cannot plump mom. I cannot put mom in the soil. Put mom in the soil for 9 months. 9 months later, pop, the hand of the baby come out. Then mom stays in the soil. Okay. Both come out together. Okay, so that's how plants go through fertilization. And I find it really cool because it's not quite like what you imagine humans go through. The sperms sperms for humans, wow, they have to swim by themselves. This one it's like grow a train track, then the sperm just cruise through the train track. Shreya? Oh, okay. Do they look different? I think I have to say, I think safely speaking, they should look different. But I think the content should be the same. Okay, content meaning like if you have a nucleus, you have the cytoplasm, so on and so forth. But the DNA should be different. Every plant's DNA needs to be different. That's why they look different. Why do you ask that question? Fair enough, fair enough. Agree? So, I agree with you. Do every sperm cells look different? Rightfully so. And especially you observe the human sperm cell, right, comes with additional parts. Still got the tail. Then in lower JH403 got like a lot of mitochondria, giving energy. Now, we don't even see that here. It's very simple. Let's now go to the human version. What? Oh, yeah, he's right. Okay, and the rest of you, scroll down to 7.3. And now it's reading time again. Yes. Oh yeah, I didn't explain angiosperm, teacher's question, right? Angiosperm refers to a flowering plant. Okay? Flowering plant. It's very odd. Why must we say flowering plant? Because not all plants flower. For example, have you ever seen a fern flower? Look at all those ferns outside. They're not exactly flowering plants. You know pine cones, pine cone trees, they actually have no flowers. They have another classification of plants called gymnosperms. These are angiosperms. So when you see the word angiosperm, we mean flowering plants. May I give everyone now 5 minutes to read 7.3.5. Let's have a look at how humans do it. Once again, highlight words that are brand new. Then we're going to watch how this happens. highlight all the parts in this part. Anything you don't understand? Okay, please read 7.3.5. Both are now a sperm cell. So the generative cell splits into two, it generates two sperm cells. Yeah, no tail. Don't need tail because it makes use of the pollen tube. It just follows the tube. It's gravity. Just now the pollen tube travel down with it. And canal, right, is the we said that when we were looking at the ovary of the blue pea flower, it came with a style. Yeah, so that's why it's a female flower got a stigma, then it's got a style, then the ovary is here, then we call the ovules inside. So it was traveling down the style. Yeah,
like for fertilization, all we learn is that we need like they say the siblings already have children will be more disease, but then it's not one thing, one
Okay, so your question is, why is it that if siblings were to, of any animal species were to mate with each other and have offspring, right, then you will have health problems? Okay, how is this related to sperm and egg fusing? Oh, so you're asking, is it related? Okay, not so much related. It has to do with the idea that the sperm and the egg of siblings, they are quite similar in DNA. They came from same parents, right? So the DNA of the brother and the sister, very, very similar. If you were to fuse back together, chances are, if there were any genetic diseases that were hidden in the mom or the dad, it may show up if the two come together from the same parents. So I think it's about the nature of the DNA, not so much about the fertilization going wrong. Nothing went wrong with fertilization. It went quite well. I'm going to slow down a bit because I noticed some of you still making notes for the plant regrow part. Okay, so for those done with the reading the human regrow section, may I invite you to continue with practice makes progress for the previous section. Do some practice while it's still fresh in your head. Insect and wind pollinated flowers. That's a sample question you can try. Yeah. Oh, okay. Do you have to memorize all the steps for the double fertilization? You are expected to. You're expected to know how to describe the steps. longer. We compress what is found on more legit textbooks. We're going to look at the human version in a while. Okay, so your task was read 7.3.5, highlight any words. We'll have a look at that in a while. Okay, let me take some highlights. Okay, which words in this part of the textbook, human fertilization, shall we pay close attention to in a while? Anyone from the crowd? Oh, you're quite good with all of them. Quite straightforward. Shami? A chromosome. Okay, let's look for the A chromosome later. Which line? Second paragraph, third line, A chromosome. Okay, thank you. Where is A chromosome? You want to know what sperm is? Oh, okay. Okay, where is A chromosome? Okay, Alpha is right. It is found in sperm. Anything else? Hold on. Did we teach this in JH403? Right. Not having deja vu. Maybe it's called teaching like Henry and Hoya exactly this. Yeah. Wait, I even thought y'all like all this Zona, Corona, all that. Yeah. Can I take this as recap? Yeah, we did. Okay. Okay, so let's watch a video. This video, I like this video because it shows the before the sperms even reach the egg. And you'll find that it's not that easy to get a baby.
Fertilisation is the epic story of a single sperm facing incredible odds to unite with an egg and form a new human life.
I'd like you to count how many ways the sperms die. Yeah? If you watch this song called Dumb Ways to Die, it's a very, very cute song. Maybe I should listen to it. They should create a sperm version of this song. Many ways the sperms will die. You go and count how many ways they die. Then you realize, you ever feel like a failure in life? Actually, you are the biggest success out of billions of sperms. Okay?
It is the story of humans.
How many ways they die? We count.
During sexual intercourse, about 300 million sperm enter the vagina.
Wow. You're really a winner out of 300 million.
Soon afterward, millions of them flow out of the vagina or die in its acidic environment. However, many survive because of the protective elements provided in the fluids surrounding them. Next, the sperm must pass through the cervix and open into the uterus. Usually, it remains tightly closed, but here the cervix is open for a few days while the woman ovulates. The sperm swim through the cervical mucus, which is thinned to a more watery consistency for easier passage. Once inside the cervix, the sperm continues swimming toward the uterus, though millions will die trying to make it through the mucus. Some sperm remain behind, caught in the folds of the cervix, but they may later continue the journeys back up to the first group. Inside the uterus, muscular uterine contractions assist the sperm on their journey toward the egg. However, resident cells from the woman's immune system mistaking the sperm for foreign invaders, destroying thousands more. Next, half the sperm head for the empty fallopian tube, while the other half swim toward the tube containing the unfertilized egg. Now, only a few thousand remain. Inside the fallopian tube
quite a bit like horror film. Don't know why it's very black and white. Okay, so many ways the sperm die. How many ways do you manage to catch? Then anyway, this one FYI, you don't need to memorize all this. I've counted quite a few. Let's see what you catch. What's the most memorable way the sperm die? I cannot even pass through the cervix. Okay, cannot even pass through the cervix. Yeah. Any more? What's most memorable to you? What? Oh, they tell you that one the best. Wrong tube. Wrong tube. Imagine it's just 50-50 flip of the coin. You go wrong tube, right? It's gone already. You just die inside the fallopian tube. Any more? Yeah, even make it into the vagina. Okay, yes. Yeah, the female's own immune system detects the sperm as an enemy, starts to digest it already. Any more? Don't need you to memorize, I just find it very funny. Sorry? Oh yeah, remember fallopian tube, you saw lots of hair-like structures, like cilia. So, you can get caught in the cilia and die. The purpose of the cilia is to sweep the egg towards the uterus. Then the sperms need to go against the cilia. They can get caught also. They also die. Any more? Wow, okay, can die in the acidic environment of the female's vaginal tract. And that's why the semen needs to be alkaline in nature to neutralize it. Any more? It's a lot of ways to die. I got one. I saw that there were folds inside the vaginal tract also. So it could also get caught in the folds. So many ways to die. Yeah? Don't memorize this, I just for fun. But I think the key for you to take note is, let's look at the winner. Okay, that's all there is to focus on, the winner. And the winner is you. Always remember that. You were that one sperm that made it all the way to the egg. This is not drawn to scale. This is a sperm that is too big compared to the egg. You saw just now that sperm is very tiny. Not drawn to scale. But the reason why I draw it so big, you can see the structures. Because earlier on, Shumei asked what is the echrosome. The echrosome is this small little vesicle in front of the sperm. Always see it's conical head shape, right? That's where it stores a lot of hydrolytic enzymes. The word hydrolytic means it uses a lot of enzymes to break things down. Okay, hydrolytic enzyme. Sorry, hydro means water. So the breaking down process means water. You also find inside the sperm, it has a nucleus, which should contain a haploid number of chromosomes. So assuming this is human, there should be 23, there should be 23. Sperms also contain a lot of mitochondria because the tail needs to do a lot of action, mitochondria. We learned in JH2 that there are a few barriers the sperm needs to go through. The first one is all of the bride's friends. Remember that the egg grew up inside the follicle, and surrounding the egg, therefore in the follicle, were a lot of good friends that were giving the egg nutrients. When the bride goes for her bachelorette party, all of the good friends come along also from the follicle. The sperm needs to get through all the good friends first. Some culture, the tradition, right, is that before the male can marry the wife, right, then the good friends, the girls, right, need to torture and torment the boy first, right, before they get the girl. Okay, so the sperm needs to find its way through all of the cells. This layer of cells we call the corona, not virus, but pellucida. But the word corona actually means crown. Yes. This is a queen over here. Yeah? Corona means crown. And actually, why we call it the coronavirus is because if you look at the virus under the scanning electron microscope, it looks like it's wearing a crown also because of the proteins surrounding it. But for the egg, it's because of all the good friends, all the cells, the follicle cells. Once the sperm reaches The next layer, this layer is the zona pellucida. Yes, spell it wrongly. No, this is corona radiata. The word radiata means to radiate out. So you see it's like a crown radiating out. Then there's the zona pellucida. This layer is made up of a lot of glycoproteins. And this is where the enzymes come in useful. The enzymes are meant to digest this layer so they can reach the egg. Once digested, it can reach the egg and fuse with the egg. That's when fertilization occurs. Then you get the zygote. Yes? What does the corona radiata do? Its original function in the follicle was to provide nutrients. But I suppose its function now is more to protect the egg. Yeah. If not, you have one egg exposed, just rolling and tumbling in the fallopian tube. Confirm the cell membrane get damaged first. So we let all the friends around get the damage first. That's fertilization in humans. For those of you that are done, let's compare fertilization in humans and plants. Look at this interactive tool. Let me teach you how to use it. You see that there are three columns. Feature of comparison, fertilization in plants, fertilization in humans. Everyone, I'll just like you to submit one feature of comparison. Give an example. You know how when you all do comparison tables, you're comparing X and Y, then you often have a feature. So let's say we are comparing between apple and orange. The feature we are comparing is color. X is red, Y is orange. That's what I'd like you to do now. I'd like all of you to write down, number one, what are you comparing? Number two, in plant, what do you observe? In humans, what do you observe? Just one feature will do. Because if all 24 of us put down one feature, we get to see lots of points of comparison as a class as a whole. Okay, may I get everyone to try this now? I think it's a fun exercise. What you should end up with. Charmaine has submitted hers. So, where sperm enter from? That's what she's comparing. In plants, micropyle. Humans, cervix. Can we find more points of comparison?
bunch of multicellular structure as a blastocyst. It's a pre-baby. How many weeks? Often I cannot remember. I think in the textbook it does show the duration. Let's see. Blastocyst. Actually very fast. By around 7 days, you already will have a blastocyst. So Finya, around 1 week, a blastocyst will form already from the zygote. Oocyte, oh, it's another name for it. I still don't know how to pronounce that. Some people pronounce oocyte and oocyte. Oocyte. Yeah.
When does like a bee like fetus gain
I was so. How will you define consciousness? That means knows what it's doing. Can feel pain. Then I think when the nervous system is established. I don't know at what point in time in the 9 months. But biologically speaking, when you have the nervous system, you need the brain, the spinal cord, and all the nerves branching out. Then you can start to feel pain. But if you're talking about whether the fetus is thinking, I don't know when it starts. Okay, let's look at some of your friends' responses. Okay, for Ella, presence of the tube cell. First, when we look at plants, you actually require the tube cell to be able to carry and ferry the sperms. But for the case of humans, for them, the sperms themselves are going to do the movement. Yeah? So I think when Ella brought up the idea of tube cells, it kind of reinforces the idea of movement. How do the sperms get to the egg? It's quite different for plants and humans. Mode of penetration to the egg. Pollen tube penetrates the ovule, entering to the micropyle. Whereas for humans, the sperm penetrates by itself through 2 layers, the corona radiata and zona pellucida. Interesting? It's something I've never quite thought of before. What the sperms need to penetrate through. And actually, you look at humans, one quite a lot of layers. But for plants, interestingly, well, it's just a micropyle. Heidi says how the sperms reach, and she also noticed it's by pollen tube or by swim. Okay, very cute. Okay, maybe we don't use the word swim. Swim, I imagine the sperm will branch out 2 arms, then doing freestyle inside the vaginal tract already. Okay, so it's the tail that will move to cause the sperm to travel. They also don't write that the tail is flapping, because it's not flapping, it's not like wings. So I think you could say that just say the movement of the tail helps to propel the sperm forward. Okay, Jeanette says male gamete. She's comparing pollen grain versus sperm. Okay, Jeanette, may I need you to elaborate a little bit about why you chose this title, male gamete? What are you trying to compare here? Okay, the male reproductive thing. Okay, let's look at gamete then. What does the word gamete mean? Actually, gamete is a very cheap, complicated way of saying sex cell. In other words, a gamete is either a sperm or an egg. So technically, the pollen grain contains the male gamete. But the polar grain itself is not the male gamete, but it contains the male gamete. The sperm, yes, it is the male gamete. For soil, what is needed for fertilization? Here, Joyon is not Joyon. Soil says that the pollination is needed first. Yeah? Only need themselves. Hey, okay, so I need you to help me explain. What do you mean humans only need themselves? I cannot fertilize myself yet. I don't have to do anything. Oh, I see. Okay, so one male, one female come together, so they only need themselves. Oh, but this one you have third party. Okay, interesting. That is right. And the third parties can be a wind, be insects, be small animals. Okay, that's interesting. So, do you need any medium, a middle party to transport the gamete? Okay, that's interesting. Kyra says number of successful sperms getting per ovule or ovary, 2 or more, 1. You're right. Actually, when you look at plants, it's double fertilization. You need 2 sperms. But for humans, 1 sperm. Each type of reproduction. Sexual. Actually, both of them are sexual. I like that you brought this up. So, what kind of reproduction is this? In fertilization, we are referring to sexual reproduction. This is not asexual. As long as there's fertilization occurring, it's sexual. Nabila says, what kind of tube the sperms go through? Pollen tube? Okay, I never thought of this before. Pollen tube, fallopian tube. Interesting. And what's interesting is that the fallopian tube is part of the female ecosystem. The pollen tube is part of the tube itself. It's not, in fact, it's part of the male, right? It's not part of the female. So it's very interesting. In the interest of time, we're going to scroll down, have a look very quickly now. Since he mentions about number of ovules. In humans, you kind of want plants a lot. Actually, in humans, notice we never use the word ovule. We have ovaries. We have 2 ovaries. Inside each ovary, there are many follicles. But actually, never mention the word ovule. If you want the closest thing to an ovule in humans, perhaps the follicles are like the ovules. Inside each ovary, we have many follicles waiting to develop. Okay, here are number of sperms produced. 2. By the male. Okay, so but actually, if you look at the anther has millions of pollen grains. Each pollen grain inside 2 sperms. Yes. If it's what? Oh, twin. For humans, right? Yeah. For twins, depending on what kind of twins, if it's non-identical twins, it could be that 2 eggs were released from both ovaries, and 2 sperms. Wow, this time is their lucky day. Both gender also can. Yeah? Or non-identical. Okay, any more? Caesar? What fertilization involves? Fertilization involves fusion of the male gamete and the egg. Okay, and we say the pollen is not the gamete itself, but the pollen contains the male gamete. For the humans, it involves the sperm as well as the egg. And in fact, I'd like that Caesar brought this point because in that sense, therefore, there is similarity between plants and humans. We do need a sperm, we do need an egg. Where the sperm enters from? Microcarp, cervix, when he says number of sperms. Okay? Number of sperms perhaps produced, maybe. Okay? Zuni, female production site of egg, ovule, ovary. Yeah. Okay, in plants, the ovule contains the egg. In humans, the ovary contains the egg. Alpha number of sperm cells needed for fertilization. You need 2 in plants, 1 in humans, right? So a movement of sperm, similar to what we mentioned earlier on. Okay, and for how young? Oh, what's this? Sperm and egg cell process of fertilization. Okay, how young kind of mentions the parts. Stigma, anther, the penis and the vagina. I don't know if this is a 1-for-1 comparison, but I acknowledge that the thing you're comparing here are the parts. Okay, let's see more. Okay, I acknowledge that I may have missed some over here because it came in a little bit later. But thank you for your comparisons. We rarely will ever ask you to compare and write in an essay these two forms of fertilization because they are actually very, very different. Humans are animals, plants are a different kingdom of living things. Very hard to compare like an apple and a shoe. Okay? But this exercise is more meant for you to think through. Both the processes, when you try to compare, you start to look for similarities and differences, you learn the processes a little bit better. Okay? Last part of today's lesson, I don't think we have the full time for it. We're going to look at some disruptions that take place in plants when it comes to fertilization. For us to do so, I provided 3 different species of plants. Let's look at plant number 1. Okay, just like how humans, right, we can prevent fertilization from taking place if, for example, the male wear the condom, you time it right, or for females, maybe they take birth control pills. Plants, how are they going to do that? You cannot like every single stigma you put one condom on top, right? Doesn't make any sense. Very not effective. Plants, however, have their own way of preventing their own pollen grain and the sperms inside from fertilizing its own egg. Because acknowledge, we want the pollen grain to fertilize another flower of another plant, but of the same species. Then we have some diversity in all the babies produced. But if you own self own pollen grain land on yourself, own self the own sperm fertilize your own egg, you're going to get very similar babies from your own characteristics. It's good and bad. If I want my offspring to be very similar to myself, then that's what I would do. So some farmers do that. For example, they have a cornfield, all very sweet. Then of course they want the whole pollen grains to fertilize its own flowers so that you end up getting more corn that's very sweet. But if you want diversity, you want variety, you want pollen grains to not, the sperms inside it to not fertilize its own self. I'm showing you 3 different flowers here. Each of these flowers has its own method of preventing self-fertilization and promoting cross-fertilization. This is flower number 1 of the papaya plant. You look at this papaya plant. Interestingly, papaya plants, if you ever find one, you'll notice that papaya plants have 2 different kinds of flowers. Here's one kind, here's another kind. Next, this is a hollyhock plant. This hollyhock plant, you see 2 flowers. They are found on exactly the same plant. But if you look at the flower and the center of it, notice that the structures are a bit different. But believe it or not, the structures are different only because of timing. This one over here, you see a certain reproductive structure. It appeared slightly after or before, I can't remember the timing of this structure. Last flower, primose plant. Look at the primose plant. These are flowers from the same plant. But you notice that the anthers are kind of lower than the stigma. Here the stigma kind of lower than the anther. They're very far apart. So for the last part of today, and maybe I'll see you tomorrow to continue this. If you look at plant reproduction, we are going to go to this particular section of the notes. Here, page 7.2.5 of page 9. I'd like to focus our attention to these 3 methods that plants use to prevent self-fertilization or promote cross-fertilization. Morphology, temporal, spatial. Once you've read up on these 3 different modes, I'd like you then to go back to the SLS to identify between these 3 plants, which mode do you think this plant is using to prevent self-fertilization? That's the exercise that I'd like you to try. Okay, so for the rest of today and tomorrow we will go through this. May I invite you now to read that 3 paragraphs. After you've read it, come back to SLS. I would like you to identify which mode of prevention of self-fertilization is this 3 plants using. See if you can match it, mode to flower. And that will be all for today. We will continue on tomorrow. Yeah. Wow. I don't know. I feel like my answer at the moment will be no. But it's on the basis that I'm not sure I don't think plants have that consciousness is thinking. But at the same time, I'm not sure if enough studies have been done to see if plants can think. So I'm not sure. About a minute more, do as much as you can. Then you can go for your recess. Easy. Yeah. Oh, you mean as it's growing? Yeah. I'm not sure. So if your question is, as the tube grows, will it suddenly die? I don't know. Yeah. Oh, it can. So actually, if you read the paragraph, the 4th paragraph, some plants employ chemicals that prevent the pollen tube from growing. So imagine if I'm a flower and my own pollen grain fall on my own stigma. I don't want it to grow fully, right? I don't want myself to suffer. Yeah. So the chemicals can prevent the tubes from growing. And in that sense, it kind of kills its own pollen grain. Some flowers are able to do that. Go ahead, I think we can cut. Did you manage to record? Yeah.